surgery. So the kids, the kids at the facility, they participate in a lot of different activities. We try to keep their minds occupied off of the house is a haven for them, away from the pain of the hospital and the harsh treatments that go on there.
We're going to get back to actually everything that the house has to offer to the kids and their families, but to continue, because I'm sure the viewers will be very interested to know how that works. To continue with the parents' story getting into the house. How does it work actually for a foreigner? How is a foreigner going to get into the house?
Well, really the same way. Yeah, the hospital is contacted, and then depending upon the hospital back home, and they communicate with each other on the severity of the type of cancer. For instance, Sloan specializes in the treatment of neuroblastoma, which is cancer of the central nervous system, a very harsh type of cancer. And if your kid has that, you want to be at Memorial Sloan Kettering.
You want to be there?
Absolutely, absolutely, because that's where they do the cutting edge work, and they have various drugs and so forth that nobody else has at the time. And
you were talking earlier about a waiting list. How does it work with that waiting list? Is it
well, we have 85 rooms, and when we filled up, we're filled up. We use several hotels in the vicinity where the families go, and then when we work off of kind of a very archaic waiting list. And then we get the kids, we get the families in slowly but surely. And then, some kids require only a visit. They're coming back for blood, for scans and blood work, and so they're in for 3 or 4 days. Basically, a third of the 84 children that are there for 2 or 3 weeks. A third are there for 2 or 3 months, and then a third for a year or more. It all depends. All of the kids heal at a different rate. And right.
To finish with that waiting list, can we say that the waiting list is more based on who gets on the list first, or the gravity of the case? What determines that?
It's a combination. It's a combination of both, and the hospitals really work the admittance process. The whole thing is about active treatment, to have your child in active treatment, to be close enough to the hospital so that if the child becomes sick, we don't perform any medical procedures at the hospital. The parents may give the child drugs and so forth in order to get them through the night and all that kind of stuff. I always say we're a charity for both the hospitals as well as the families, because the hospitals would have to, it's between $700 and $900 a day to keep a child in the hospital. It's $35 a night at the Ronald McDonald House. So you do the math. It's a tremendous thing. And they would only be able to, if they did have to keep the kids in the hospital, they'd only be able to treat a fraction of the kids that they're able to do now because of the facility of Ronald McDonald House. And so they're able to take and experiment with these children in a very good way, and have a much more broad sense of disease work with the children.
So your family physician, if I go back to the whole chain of events, a family physician detects a cancer, talks to his counterpart in a cutting-edge place like Sloan Kettering or something like that, or any other hospitals affiliated with the house. Then a social worker is going to get involved and see with you if there is room for the family.
That's correct.
The family gets in, and it's actually cost them $35 a day to stay there.
That's correct. And we have various ways of support if the family is unable to pay that, and the hospitals are very good as well in terms of the involvement. It's called a suggested donation, the $35. But we here in New York City, we have a lot of resources that help the families, because we obviously, any family that has a sick child is burdened with very heavy medical bills, and oftentimes end up losing their homes because they have to be so far away, and they need their husband or whatever that might be home trying to keep the mortgage going and the rent paid. And then there are siblings to be considered as well, and we have lots of programs for them at the Ronald House.
So the house can get in and pay $35 a day, which we know in New York, $35 a day, it's absolutely unheard of.
Sure.
What services will the house provide to these families that, as you said, they're very burdened, they have a sick child, it must be a tremendous, difficult time, a terrible trauma for the whole family. What is the house doing for these families coming on?
Well, first and foremost, we provide housing for them, a roof over their head, and a facility that enables them, while they're going through this difficult period, to live as a family. And we try to create as much of normalcy as we can in a setting like that. It's very, very difficult. We have a small staff of 47 full-time employees, but the only reason we get by is we have about 250 volunteers, one more dedicated than the other, that help provide a lot of programs and activities for the families while they're there. Each of the families have a hotel-style room, which is about 375 square feet. And so it's not very much room, especially if you're of that third of the population that is there for a year or more. You can imagine having 2 or 3 kids and your mom and dad in that kind of a space. So it's the rest of the facility has all communal space, communal kitchens, communal dining areas, communal playrooms, living rooms, things of that nature, so that the families can participate. Part of the healing process is the ability of peer-to-peer relationships, so that if you're a teenager with cancer and you're bald because of the chemotherapy, or you have a tumor out of the side of your head, you can interact with another family, with another child that's sick, and realize you're not alone in the world. And particularly important for our mothers and fathers, because they're able to talk to other people. It's one thing to be able to sympathize with someone over, the condition that they're in. It's another thing to be able to empathize, to be able to feel from one mother to another mother. And so
of course,
the healing process, that's a very important setting that we provide in the whole process, so that they realize they're not alone in this world with this terrible situation that's around them.
So Bill, you're having this fantastic setting, 47 staffers, you said, and also, I guess, a lot of volunteers. And then I would like, if you, with your permission, to talk to Jef now. Jef Campion, who is actually a volunteer, one of the volunteers of the house, is not only a volunteer, he's also a Thursday night team leader. Jef, could you tell us how long you've been a volunteer, and what does it mean to be a Thursday night team leader?
Actually, it's a privilege to be a volunteer at the Ronald McDonald House, to be able to interact with the families and the children. It's hands-on volunteering. A lot of people raise money for charity.